Alright gang, it's a sunny, soon to be hot day in Georgia, and I have a project today. This is my son's 2006 Mazda 3, and I noticed the other day that it needed some brake pads. I could see through the wheel, these nice generous openings, that the pads were getting thin and he was due. So I picked up a set of pads from Advanced Auto Parts. These are Wherever Platinums Premium, and they come with some grease. Of course, the pads nicely wrapped with the little spring clips already mounted on them, as they should be, and some hardware. I may or may not use this hardware. I'll probably check to see the condition of what I have, and I'm just going to go through the steps and how I do this in changing out some brake pads. Okay, as you can see, I've removed the wheel. Those were 21mm nuts on the wheel. Of course, I've got it jacked up at what would be the factory location if you use the car jack, and I have a jack stand underneath. And now you can see from this position how thin the pads are. The big metal part you're seeing right there is the main pad assembly, and then the wear area is on the inside. At this point, I'm going to remove the caliper. Now there's two dust covers, and they go in these rubber boots right here. There's one at the top and one at the bottom. Those are the mount bolts for the caliper, and those are a 7mm Allen head, and I have a short extension, and that'll go in there and catch that, and I'll break that loose, and then I'll also take the bottom one loose, which is down here. Can't see it directly, right there, and then that'll release the caliper. Along with that, these clips, and they're spring clips, and these little rods catch in these holes, and I'll show you how to get those off in just a minute. Okay, so these clips are obviously going to have some spring tension on them, and I'm just going to take a screwdriver and get behind it, push it out a little bit, and I'll grab it with some pliers, and you saw that it sprung out pretty easily. Now the tricky part of getting it back, we'll be getting it back in, but I'll show you that as well. And now we can get the caliper out of the way. Now the caliper is going to have a little bit of tension on it, just because it's designed to have tension. So an easy way to pull some of that, or relieve some of that, is to compress the piston back into the caliper. And so, see if I can get this angle right. I'm going to take a screwdriver and put it up here between the bracket and the caliper itself, and I'm going to press it in so that it compresses the piston slightly. Now caliper comes right off, and now you can see just how thin those pads were. They could have went a little while longer, but they were due to be changed. So let me get these out of the way, and I'll get the new ones in place. This pad is held in with that spring clip that I showed you in the packaging. And you just grab a hold of it and pop it out. Now what you could do while that pad is still in place is use a piston or caliper, compressor, whatever you want to label it. They sell these at the parts store. They're pretty cheap, and they're designed to push that piston back into the caliper. You could also do it with a pair of vice grips, and you would open them up real big, catch the caliper and catch a brake pad in between and compress it. I prefer to use this little compressor deal, and all it does is thread in, slide into the opening, and as you tighten it up, the piston compresses, and it's real easy. Now these little compressor tools, I've had this one for years. I think I bought it for like, I don't know, under $10. So pretty handy to have, and that takes care of compressing the piston. And one thing I want to point out while you're doing this is pay attention to your reservoir, because if your car gets serviced, like oil changes or anything like that, more than likely they're going to top off your brake fluid. So you need to monitor that, because what could happen is, as you're compressing the piston, you could actually push excess fluid out. The brake system is designed to be a sealed system. What that means is you shouldn't have to add brake fluid. And whenever your brake pads wear down and the piston extends out in the caliper, that fluid goes down. So when somebody services it and adds more, when you're put on new pads and that piston goes back into the caliper, it pushes more fluid up to the top, and it could push out all over the place. And I'll show you how I fix that. Okay, so here's my simple, really simple solution to excess brake fluid. You know, like I said, if it gets too full, it could push out over the top. Now, I've only done one wheel, so I'm not worried about it just yet, but this is my fix. This is a turkey baster. My wife hates me for taking her turkey baster. But basically, and this bottle here is old brake fluid that I've held on to, but you can just put the turkey baster in, suck up some fluid, and then transfer it to the bottle. And that way it doesn't go all over the place when you compress it back. So, just a simple little tip. Now, you can see how thick the new brake pads are. Much better than that old worn out stuff. So, this is a spring clip on the back of the inner pad. And all you're going to do is line that up. You can push it in a little with your fingers to get it started. But basically, it just pops into place. And then your outside pad just slides right in as well. Now in this configuration, this outer pad you can put in place and it'll stay there. So then you can slip around the caliper and line things up and get your bolts in place. Now at this point, I'm also going to take and clean these, get them cleaned off. These are the bolts that hold the caliper, and I'll take some of the grease and I'll apply it to those, because the caliper actually slides on these. And you could also add a little grease to the hook areas of the pads if you want. And with all that lubed, I'll reinstall the caliper, get those bolts back in place, and then once I get that all tightened up, I'll reinstall those outer clips. Okay, so the bolts are tight, and now all you have left to do is install those little dust covers on the rubber sleeves around the bolts. And then I'm going to use the Mazda clip. Probably doesn't make any difference, but I just want to use the original parts. So I put it in that top hole, rotate it and catch that bottom hole, and then work it around with my fingers. And then I'll just gently tap it to seat those in there good, and that'll take care of this caliper. Now, one other thing we can do at this point, you know, I talked before about the overflow possibility in the reservoir. There's going to be a little bit of a gap. I know this is fitting pretty snug, but there's some play right now in that caliper. So at this point, I'll go in the car and I'll press on the brake pedal, and that'll push some of the fluid back into the caliper, and that'll alleviate some of the overflow possibilities at the top. So other than that, I'm just going to put it back together, do the other side, and that'll take care of this 06 Mazda 3. Thanks for watching.